What do you think is the number one thing that's stopping people from making more art?
I think people stop themselves from making art. How many times have you heard somebody say, I would love to make this thing, but so and so already did it and posted it on Instagram. So and so did it and now they're selling 100,000 of them at Monsterpalooza. Who cares? It's like we get in our way because we're afraid to fail. I'm saying this as I've conquered this because I'm afraid to fail all the time. But what I've learned over the time is if it scares me, I should probably be doing that thing. The hardest thing to do is to learn to be honest with yourself, right? Self-critiquing is probably the hardest skill set I've ever had to learn. So that's probably one of my other dragons. It's like learning how to critique myself genuinely and being like, is this really good enough? Should I really put this out there, or can it be better? If you make a nice, beautiful piece of art, as soon as you're done with it, don't post. Don't post for likes. I think that's really where I'm going with this. Don't post for likes because likes don't pay the bills. Post because you want to share it and you're proud of it. So enjoy the journey. Don't worry about too much about what other people are saying. Don't post for likes. Just post because it's something that is exciting to you. And if you're trying to get a job, then make sure you have that your portfolio is always improving over time.
I am super excited for this episode today because if you know anything about me, I very much do love ZBrush. And my career before getting into 3D was very much photography, videography, event stuff, etc. And over the last couple of years, in 2023, I really invested time transitioning into learning ZBrush, way more 3D, and really embracing that part of my creativity. And the guest today, Ian Robinson, has been such an incredible motivator, mentor, friend, lifting partner, among many other things. So I'm excited to introduce you to this episode of the Creative Adventure Podcast with my very good friend, Ian Robinson. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Creative Adventure Podcast. Put down your sword, put down your axe, your wizard staff, close ZBrush, but if you do use ZBrush, today is a very epic episode because we have a very awesome guest today. My friend Ian, can you introduce yourself? What do you do? What kind of art do you make?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me first and foremost. So I am the senior ZBrush trainer at Maxon. I've been there for about 3 years. And the type of work I make, I actually got my start in toys and game props and some animation work as well.
Okay, cool. So I always start these episodes with a nerdy question because I want us to pretend we're in a tavern. So that question is, if you were to go and slay a dragon, what would be your weapon of choice?
That's a good question. So thinking about it, I haven't played much D&D. I'm going to preface that one, so I don't really know much about it. I want to get into it more. Mm-hmm. But definitely I would say something more along the lines of a sword or like a spear of some kind. But I definitely, if I had to pick a class, would probably be something more of like knight or even like monk. Mm-hmm. And that's partly just due to my martial art background.
Mm-hmm. So melee character, you want to be up in the thick of it. You like sort of brute forcing things?
Yeah, I've been told I've been brute forcing before.
Okay.
That's kind of my art style. I just smash clay together, and then whatever sticks, that's kind of the final result.
Okay, love that. I always transition that question into what I seek to understand most about artists, and that question is, what is your dragon as a person? Because we, as artists, as humans, there's always something that we are always battling, like something that's a challenge for us, whether it's mental health, physical health, whether it's like finding confidence to put ourselves out there as artists. And you've had a very long career as a ZBrush artist at this point, but you didn't go to art school. So can you think of like what some of your main dragons were that you had to conquer for yourself?
Well, I would say first and foremost, some of the main dragons that I'm currently still dealing with is like, is like, am I good enough? Is like that whole, like, that vibe of, I always feel like I have to stay on top of things, and I always have to try new things and learn new things. And so for me, the fear is like I'll fall behind if I don't stay current. So that's like the current dragon is like, am I good enough? The self doubt, the imposter syndrome, as it would speak, kind of pops in my head a lot more. But in my early days, I always felt like I was playing catch up with life because, I mean, I'm 42 and I say that pretty proudly. But, when I was in high school and I graduated in 2001, I was basically told that unless you get a college degree, you're not going to make it as an artist. I even like looked at animation studios like Warner Brothers, did like special tours when I was a kid, talked to comic artists, and it was like if you don't go to school, you're not going to make it. And I didn't really have a lot of good guidance. No real good role models to kind of help me with that. So I pretty much gave up early as far as an art career goes, and I just fell into other tools. So when I like aerospace and other stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into, but at the end of the day, some of the big dragons I had to basically fight was finding the time to actually learn this stuff. Because, I was always a creative person. I did photography for many years, headshot photography, wedding photography. I still dabbled in drawing. I played the drums. I did martial arts. I dabbled in a lot of different things. And it wasn't until 3D printing came along that I really like found a lot of interest. But, I got married really young. I had kids really young. So being a family man in my late 20s, early 30s, it was very difficult to kind of balance a new career shift because stability is very important. So I would say like finding the time to do it, up late nights, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to study, watch some YouTube video, study some anatomy course by Raphael Grassetti, whatever I could find my hands on Gumroad, I was there, I was grabbing it. So it was definitely finding time and keeping, I don't want to use the word motivated, but in a sense like keeping my interest of like this could be something if I really put my all into it, because I was just that passionate about it. I didn't like where I was with my current career from manufacturing and machine shop. And so I wanted to transition out of that, but I didn't know where to go. And so I would say, yeah, that's the big ramble answer.
Okay, okay. So your dragons, it sounds like it's a lot of self-trust, like trusting that
Yeah,
you can like accomplish a thing, give yourself the time to do it, and uh,
balance.
balancing
Yeah,
all of that between being a human being and being an artist. Because I think we all as artists struggle with hyper obsession.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so how are you still hyper obsessed?
Yeah, oh no, I get hyper obsessed with anything I'm interested in.
Okay,
If you ever want to know anything about me, just scroll through my YouTube account and you'll
okay.
see all of the hyper focus fixation. Like, like you and I have been working out
Hmm.
like together on and off for the last couple of years. My YouTube videos all now working out videos and it's like I go down rabbit holes where
Hmm.
I'm like really excited about a certain thing and I need to understand every aspect about it. Even if I don't go in certain directions, it's really good for my brain to understand every direction that I could possibly go in and what that means for me moving forward and
Hmm.
pursuing said thing. So in this case, when it came to like ZBrush as a whole, I was one of the first people to open up ZBrush and shut it off in like 5 minutes. Like I wasn't the first person to open ZBrush. I said that weird, but like I opened up ZBrush 5 minutes later, I shut it down. I hated it. I was like, I don't even know what to do with this thing, and it took like probably another month or two for a buddy of mine to reconvince me to open it up. And as soon as I did, it just got to the point where it was like, now I became obsessed because I finally understood kind of how the program worked. And then I spent a lot of late nights on YouTube and in forums like, what does this do? What does that button do? This, that, and the other.
Hmm.
So yeah, I kind of get hyper focused
Okay.
on things.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because you have been very motivational, or you inspired me to dive into ZBrush because you and I have met in what was it, 2023 NAB,
Yeah, yeah,
and you showed me ZModeler because I was struggling of making all my board game props for my work that I
yeah,
do, and since then I went through that like hyper obsession period where I just went all in on very much learning as much as I could about the tool. I'm not nearly as organically inclined, like sculpting organically, but I know the tool.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is I think there's a level of grit that you and I may share, and this type of grit, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I want to deconstruct this because you have a little bit of an athletic background
Yeah.
as well with martial arts, and you've had to deal with doing things that are significantly outside of your comfort zone, like sparring, probably getting kicked in harder than you want to, and having to get up. And art feels the same way. Do you think that you having that kind of background and your upbringing helped you become a better artist?
Ooh, I would say in some respects, yeah, I would agree with that because, you know, depending on where you are in your journey of life, right? Everybody experiences things very differently, and our perception, like we only have our own perception from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. And so, because of that perception, like a lot of times I think we're tunnel visioned as my struggle's this, and no one else can understand what's going on. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, through my upbringing, which was not easy, it was quite difficult, and then using martial arts as kind of a tool and using drawing as a tool to kind of be my own therapy as a kid, I think it definitely gave me a set of confidence that I normally wouldn't have had. You know, I grew up watching movies like Bloodsport and Best of the Best and Lionheart and Kickboxer and stuff, you know. It's a lot of Van Damme movies, uh, and because of that, like I was inspired, like, well, the toughest person is somebody who can handle themselves and stay confident and stay secure in who they are. And so those are kind of the representations that I would see. I mean, growing up in the 90s, we had, you know, you had other key, you know, actors like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had He-Man, right? So we had body image of like, this is what a man's supposed to be, this is what a person's supposed to be. But the creative side of me kind of took inspiration with that, and it kind of came in something similar as like when I saw Dragon Ball Z for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then that's the first time my two worlds of art and martial arts collided. And so, yeah, that kind of upbringing, when I would look at those things and I would see the strength of these characters being portrayed in film or in comics, I was like, oh, I'm just going to replicate that. And I think that helped kind of carve my mental structure when it comes to how I approach things in life.
Mm-hmm. So let's transition this to ZBrush then a little bit. You've definitely had this upbringing that was tumultuous and definitely had some speed bumps. Do you think that there was you mentioned earlier that there was a moment 5 minutes where you opened up ZBrush and you hated it,
Yeah.
and like someone had to convince you to get back into it. What clicked, and how did you sort of manifest stronger energy to stick with it and continue to be consistent to grow who you are today?
So I kind of show it when I teach ZBrush.
Okay.
I found the shortcuts to get to where I wanted to be in the program quick and you know, effectively. So take a point like when I teach somebody brand new to ZBrush, I don't show them open the program, close Lightbox, grab a sphere, drag it out, hit edit, hit make polymesh 3D, and now you're sculpting.
Mm-hmm.
I literally am like, the Lightbox is open, double click the project, now you're sculpting.
Mm-hmm.
I found ways that made it easy for me to understand how to navigate the program.
Mm-hmm.
So then because I'm a simple person, right? So if I have to take 10 steps to make it out my front door, I want to see how fast I can optimize that to make that in just a few steps. And so it's kind of the same way. And so when my buddy showed me ZBrush and he showed me like what 2.5D was versus sculpting, that's when I was like, okay, because what made me shut it down was the 2.5D. I drew all these freaking squares all over the canvas, and then I didn't know what to do, and I was clicking buttons, and no menus made sense, and I was like, this is stupid. I was like, we're done. So, but then when he showed me, like, no, that's the painting side of it. We're gonna go to the sculpting side, and he showed me how to get there, and then he showed me where the brushes were and how to navigate, and then he showed me what Dynamesh was, and then he says, there you go, that's it, that's all you need to know. And then from there, I was like, great, fantastic, thank you very much. And then I took it from there. And then I actually studied traditional sculpting, but then I just transferred it to traditional sculpting, meaning I was watching YouTube videos of traditional sculptors, and then I was just trying to replicate what they did in ZBrush. But it was what made it click was being shown where those things were, because I don't think they're super intuitive to a layman who's just trying to get into ZBrush for the first time. The UI is crazy. We hear it all the time. It's like the UI is insane. Right. And I think ZBrush becomes more intuitive as you become more experienced. But in the beginning, there's a lot of switches, dials, buttons, bubbles, and things. And it's like, well, what do I press? And I think, it's for me, it was figuring out the right things to press that then gave me confidence to want to go further into the program.
I'm curious, so you had this one person who encouraged you and gave you that sort of like guidance.
Yeah.
There was to an extent like an Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of like showing you the path and the way to start forging your own path.
Yeah, he was encouraging me to use the Force.
Okay.
All the time.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. So tell me about some of your role models and mentors along the way, because your original background was in aerospace. You mentioned that casually earlier. So like, can you start with that and then and then kind of lead us to where you are today?
Yeah, so while I was in aerospace, 3D printing was becoming more and more relevant. And they do a lot of 3D printing in aerospace, a lot of metal 3D printing, which is insane. So I was introduced to 3D printing by the same friend. His name's Travis, by the way. I don't know, we haven't named him yet. His name's Travis. Awesome.
We love
dude.
Travis.
Yeah.
I love Travis. He's great.
And so, yeah, thanks to Travis, I actually have a career. So I was introduced to 3D printing through aerospace. And when I met up with Travis, and we got to know each other really well, he was also super into 3D printing because he does prop design for the film industry. He'll make props and stuff. And so he was using ZBrush and 3D printing. And so we had something to connect on. And so 3D printing was awesome. And as I was diving down into 3D printing, I started seeing all of these really amazing statues. Sideshow statues were some of the early ones that I saw. Art from Raphael Grassetti, from Steve Lord. Those were like, I was like, man, these things are amazing. I didn't know it at the time, but I had those Disney Infinity statues, and I was playing that with my kids all the time until that game died. But I didn't know that Shane Olson was part of the guy who was like making all of those. I had ZBrush stuff in my house before I knew what ZBrush was. And so, those were early inspirations. As I was like, oh, well, I want to 3D print statues. What makes statues? ZBrush makes statues. How do I make statues? Well, I need to go look at artists that use ZBrush. And then I came across Grassetti's, I came across Steve Lord's, and I was like really blown away by these guys. And so I was like, oh, awesome. I also saw guys like Mike Thompson, who does a lot of like hip hop, ZBrush sculpture and paint overs with Corel. And so those few people, when I would see their work, and I'm like, this is the top echelon. And then knowing that some of my video games, as I did more research, like God of War, that was done using ZBrush. And so I was like obsessed, because I was like, oh, finally now I'm seeing the product of what the software can do. And that was like really encouraging to me. And it all just started with wanting to 3D print. I was like, I just want statues that are cool. And I ironically thought it was going to be easy to make these statues. I didn't realize I'd have écrachés and tons of anatomy books and medical books, because that's important if you're going to sculpt anything that has, well, everything has anatomy, but if you're going to sculpt a human or a creature or whatnot, it's all anatomy based, and you have to know that. And ZBrush doesn't directly teach you anatomy, although there is an écrachet in ZBrush. Most people don't know that, but it's there. But it doesn't directly teach you that. So I realized that, ZBrush is just a tool to express the things I want to create, and those inspirations kind of helped affect the direction that I wanted to go.
Okay. That's an interesting, you brought up a topic that I think is something most artists don't think about. They kind of, most people, in my opinion, may pigeon themselves or specialize way too early with their goals or their careers. This exists in powerlifting. You have young people who are like, oh, I'm 22 years old and I just want to be a powerlifter. But it's like, dude, if you like learn how to do a little bit more athletic things, you become a much better powerlifter later in life, sort of thing. So the topic I kind of want to explore is, you're a trainer, you teach ZBrush now, and it's like most people think of ZBrush as like games and film, but and you mentioned 3D printing.
Yeah.
Like, how many industries exist for ZBrush, and like how can other people who may be interested in becoming an artist think about like, oh, I don't just have to work in games or film to do what I love.
Yeah, so that's a great point, great question. And it's actually about 13 industries. To name a few of the popular ones, obviously there's film and there's games, then there's toys, and then there's collectibles. And those are kind of the same but different in a sense. A collectible is definitely more of like a static statue that's really like super high detailed. When you think collectibles, you're thinking Tweeterhead, you're thinking Sideshow, you're thinking, sometimes even fine art, like big, bold statues. Now, that's not to say that that can't also be considered a toy. And a toy, like an action figure, is not necessarily, it can be considered a collectible as well. It just depends on what's being made. But toys and collectibles kind of are the same, but they're in separate industries. Then you have automotive, illustration, rapid prototyping. You have ArchViz. They use ZBrush sometimes for just designing quick landscape buildings and just getting things built in real quickly. I might have mentioned automotive. Did I mention?
You did.
I did, yeah. But I mean, companies like Mercedes and Honda, they use it as well. So there's quite a few different industries. I don't have a list with me,
Yeah, no,
but
that's
it's
okay.
about
That's okay.
jewelry is another big one. Actually, jewelry would be used while Rhino is still a very prevalent program in jewelry. ZBrush and the ability to do it, guys like Tamal Whittlebach, Eric Keller, those guys are like huge in the ZBrush and huge in the jewelry scene. And you can sculpt something very quick and very effective, and you can get a very organic look. So pretty much if you ever did it in some sort of red wax at all traditionally, ZBrush kind of came in and allowed that to happen on a digital side. So you have a lot of different uh, industries you can dabble into. And I actually tell people, if you know ZBrush, then you don't have to just think games or film. In fact, if anything, I want you to think beyond that. Think into manufacturing, and manufacturing covers a lot of that. You have to understand manufacturing for toys, for collectibles, for jewelry. So especially for any type of aerospace or automotive, you need to know that stuff. So it can be used in a lot of those, and it is used in a lot of those industries. I would say that games, films, and toys are definitely the top of the list as far as who does it. But again, we've seen like forensics, like FBI forensics has used ZBrush to reconstruct, humans, scans of we'll keep it PG,
Right.
but scans of humans when
Yeah.
necessary
Yeah.
in order to reconstruct what's going on. And medical as well, medical illustration uses ZBrush quite extensively, as well as Cinema 4D. So it's really up there.
What that tells me is that there's a lot of opportunity to be an artist.
Yes.
As in, and as someone who does work in games through some extension through board games and whatnot, but like there's so many ways to express yourself as an artist, or at least do what you love doing, and you get to see that on like a pretty much daily basis with your work. Like when someone approaches you about like learning ZBrush, but they don't know where to go with it, like how do you encourage, like regardless of the tool, like how do you encourage the confidence in someone to like really step into something that's really uncomfortable, embrace that for a little bit, and let them explore and play to hopefully have it evolve into an opportunity to maybe be a career?
Yeah, so I first want to know what they're interested in doing or making at all. If somebody says, I need to know ZBrush, usually it's because, like most industries, when you dive into an industry, let's just use video games as an example. You dive into an industry like video games, and people start researching, what do I need to know to make a video game? And then you start getting thrown a billion programs. Maya is like the number one thing that pops up there. Blender will pop up there. ZBrush will pop up there, right? Unreal Engine, Unity, Marmoset Toolbag will pop up there. Substance Painter, Mari, Nuke. You're like, what are all these programs and what does that have to do with my video game, right? And so they start then figuring out, well, which program is doing what? And a lot of times, if they come across ZBrush and there's interest, then that means that they're interested in modeling something typically, but not in a traditional means. When somebody says, oh, I want to model something, a lot of times they'll think of Maya or some sort of box modeling program, right? But with ZBrush, it's specialized in sculpture and painting. That's like it's the two things it's really good at, and that's like all like that is it. And I mean, hard surface is in there now, right? Because over the years it's grown, and we've introduced Z Modeler to have that more organic approach to hard surface. But at the same time, it's like, it's really good at sculpting. That's what it does. So it's a very specialized tool. So immediately I'm asking them, well, you want to learn ZBrush. What about ZBrush interests you? And you might get an answer like, well, I want to do character work, or I want to do environments, or I want to do props. And on the surface, if you watch any ZBrush presentation whatsoever, like part of our job is to showcase how simple it is to use that tool, right? But like my experience, sometimes seeing how simple it is, but then starting can be two different things. So getting an interest in what they're interested in helps me guide them into a direction that they would want to go. So let's say they're like, oh, I'm interested in props. It's like, cool, okay, well, tell me some of the things that you want to do for props. Well, I love Star Wars. Great. Tell you what, let's make a lightsaber together. Sit with me for an hour, 2 hours tops. We'll make a lightsaber together, and by the time you're done, you'll understand at least how to use the tool to some degree. And even if it's not the best lightsaber in the world, it's the best lightsaber they're going to make because it'll be their first or second time approaching it. And once somebody gets comfortable using a program like ZBrush, then sky's the limit, But it's connecting with what makes it intriguing for them. Because if I'm going to teach you how to make a lightsaber, but you have no interest in Star Wars and you have no interest in box modeling, then I lost you. And so a lot of it is connecting with you as a person, what you're interested in. I've had conversations for like 30 minutes with, studios who are like, well, we do Jurassic Park, we do this, we do that. It's like, okay, well, what can I help you with? Well, we want to introduce ZBrush to do X, Y, and Z. Great, now I have a direction. And a lot of times I'll go off and make the thing myself first, and then I'll introduce that thing in our training session, be like, okay, so this is what I created. It's probably not up to 100% standard to what you guys have as the final product, but this is just to show you within a couple days, I can create something that you're interested in, and now I can play it back for you. I can teach you in real time how to do that. So it's really about just gathering their own interest in what inspires them, whether you're being an individual who's a hobbyist or looking to get into this professionally, or you're just looking to do a thing because you saw something on YouTube, you said, that's cool, I want to do that.
What do you think is the number one thing that's stopping people from making more art?
I think, and this might be a bold statement, Cotton.
Okay.
I think people stop themselves from making art. I think people get in their head a little too much, and I'm speaking from experience. How many times have you heard somebody say, I would love to make this thing, but so-and-so already did it and posted it on Instagram. So-and-so did it, and now they're selling 100,000 of them at Monsterpalooza. Who cares? I think if you have that passion, if you are interested in making that thing, go make that thing. Who cares if I did it, or Grissetti did it, or Shane Olson did it, or if you did it? Who cares? If you are interested in making that thing, don't let somebody else who you probably don't even know, just because they're getting likes and views on their Instagram, who cares? If you're interested in making that thing, go make that thing. I think we get in our own way because as artists, I mean, you hear this all the time. We're our worst critic. We're our own worst enemy, right? They even have a song about it, My Own Worst Enemy. Lit. Love that song. Because of, it's like we get in our way because we're afraid to fail. We're afraid to succeed. And it's not like I'm saying this as I've conquered this because I'm afraid to fail all the time. But what I've learned over the time is if it scares me, I should probably be doing that thing. So if I am interested in making something, just go make the thing. And if it didn't work out, then you have experience making it, and you can always come back to it. I love sculpting Venom. Venom is one of my fun little check-ins where I'll sculpt him once a year and just kind of see how I've grown as an artist. I don't always post it. But at the end of the day, it's do you know how many Venoms exist right now? Just Instagram or Google Venom. You're going to get 1 billion of them. But this doesn't stop me from doing it. I love the character. I think he's cool, and I think he's a fun thing to sculpt, especially if you kind of want to have a play. If you don't want to be super tight to anatomy, he's a great one to make because you can make him as ridiculous as you want.
It can be playful and it doesn't necessarily match the human form exactly.
Yeah, it's humanish, but as long as you get most of the anatomy in the right place, or just do what most like 2D artists do, just literally chop them off at the neck and just do the head, because you can have so much fun with that. I mean, he's a symbiote, for crying out loud. You can literally have him being liquid to a head and he's going to look cool. So I think, yeah, so that's my final answer. It's like, just, I think we get in our own way, and I think it's something that we just have to allow ourselves to be human, be an artist, be a creative, and go make that thing.
That was a beautiful answer. That is very inspiring even to me.
Thanks, man.
Just like I feel like we as humans, we're naturally wired to be competitive. We're naturally wired to be status seeking, and there is this artist mindset that needs to erode those thoughts of seeking status, seeking fame, so we can actually sit down and do the work. And like your life, because it sounds like there's been some roller coasters along the way. Like, when did it click for you to just like say, you know what, I'm just gonna go and turn the blinders on and eventually get to where you're at today?
So I would say the thing that really clicked for me, so I'm a unique case. I wanted to really, I found ZBrush when I was still in manufacturing. And I thought, man, I could do this. I thought, man, this could be easy, right? This will be fun, simple. I was wrong. It's very difficult. But over time, it gets easier, especially if you want to stay into it. But there was a moment where before the pandemic, I didn't really think that I was going to make it as an artist. I was starting to pick up some freelance work, working odd jobs, meeting up with people at Designer Con, trying to like just kind of put myself out there. But then when 2020 happened and the world shut down, and I was sitting there with my ex and the kids, and we're all living under the same roof, and we're trying to figure out what the next steps are. How are we going to survive? What's going on? Well, I turned to Twitch to watch video games and to just kind of connect with people on a social level, because we're all stuck in our house, right? And at this point, we were all literally running to the grocery store, masked up, coming home, taking our clothes off, right? Doing the whole like laundry, because we didn't know what was causing what. And so a couple months into the pandemic, I actually synced up with a few people on Instagram who were 3D printing mask shields, and they were using HEPA filters from Target or Amazon or whatever they could find to like cut those up and then make masks, because production was down. So I connected with a few people because I had a ton of like FDM printers just at the house based on my graphic design job before the pandemic shut down or shut everything down. So I was sitting there 3D printing masks for a couple months, like 4 or 5 machines in my living room going off. And as I was sitting here, I was thinking, I just want to be helpful and to like connect with a community of some sort. And so as I sat there one day and realizing that mass production came back and my printer shut down, I was like kind of lost. But then that guy who I was connected with, he was like, well, hey, you do like artwork, right? Like, could you make this character for me? I want to start a company. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I connected with him, and he had a concept. So then I sculpted this character for him in ZBrush, and then I turned it back in, and he loved it. And so we did a couple poses, and then we made a final like 2D illustration render of it. And I don't know what he ever did with it. We kind of lost touch. But from that moment forward, I was like, well, he just paid me to do a thing for him. And I was like, well, is there more opportunity for that? But then I realized I really took an honest look at my portfolio, which wasn't much of anything. And I was like, I don't know if I can continue doing that. I don't know if I'm good enough. So that's when I connected with the 3D character workshop. I mean, I'd already been in ZBrush for a long time, but I learned the program before I learned the artistry. Like, that's really I kind of learned it backwards. So with connecting with the 3D character workshop, that gave me community, that gave me sense. And then as I was working with Shane Olson and some of the other students in his workshop, I was posting every single day. I was doing projects. Then I was like, let me live stream this. And let me just live stream my progress. And it was just a way to kind of like have a 9 to 5. I live streamed 8 hours a day on Twitch, all of 2020. Mm-hmm. And then I started realizing my progress. I also sat down with Shane in the character workshop. He had like one-on-ones with the students, and I asked him one day, I was like, can you just be like really hard on me? Like, I want you to basically tell me I'm a failure if I'm a failure. If it's not working, I need to know. And he didn't really want to do it, but I was like, I need this. I need somebody to sucker punch me in the throat and tell me this is not good. This, like, really push me. And I convinced him to do it. He's such a sweetheart. He's such a bear. But he's like, you just want to love him. But he was like, all right, fine, I'll give it a shot. And I was kind of like his test on whether or not he could, like, what he wanted to do with one-on-ones. And it was kind of for me to like find somebody to like, you know, push me. And he ultimately, like, we just kind of connected, and that's where our friendship started. But he really helped push me. And so with live streaming and stuff, I just saw this rare opportunity that I could probably succeed in this industry. And I was first going for games, but then I realized that, well, in the toy industry, you need a lot of like know-how for how to 3D print, how to produce something for manufacturing. So I thought, well, let me use my aerospace manufacturing skills and just kind of lean into that. And so Shane helped me build a portfolio and get that situated so I could start applying to stuff. And I actually freelanced for most of 2020, and then until I got noticed by a company called Coach.com. And then they actually gave me my first animation job. Ironically, I was working towards toys and I picked up an animation job. And I did their Rexy dinosaur that was all set up and went through the whole animation pipeline. So ZBrush to Maya to Substance Painter to final rigged. And then they had an animation team that did it. And then that really was my first high-end professional paid job. And then that led me to Funko. So it's like, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of rambled a bit, but it's like, yeah, just kind of noticing an opportunity that I didn't think I was ever going to get again. You know, I didn't have to go to a job. I made sculpting my job. I basically made my job for me. I was like, I'm going to do this because it's what I want to do. And I found success in doing that.
It sounds like there's three major things that you did to get you to where you are today. The first was finding some sort of community, like finding some way to either get feedback or be motivated by like finding your people. And the second thing it sounds like you did was find a mentor, find someone who could be your final end all be all Qui-Gon Jinn sort of thing, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, because those are the characters that help lead you. And then you started being really freaking active on social media. And I think that's something that more artists need to do. They just need to post more and get okay with posting the suck. I'm really curious, like when you were posting some of the things that maybe sucked a little bit, how did you feel?
Oh man, I posted a lot of things that sucked. If you scroll down my Instagram long enough, you're gonna see some pretty wild stuff. There was a lot of growth in a short amount of time, right? And I think finally, just because it all started clicking, but I had somebody to help guide me. But to answer your question, at first I got a lot of negative comments. I got a lot of people saying, "Why are you posting? This looks stupid. This is no good." Blah blah blah, and that hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Like I have feelings, and that sucked. But then I actually told that to Shane. I was like, "This is bothersome. Like I'm just trying to put myself out there." And he turned around and said, "First off, ignore that. But second off, just look at the person who's commenting. Go look at their Instagram. Go look at their portfolio. Is their portfolio as good or better than yours? If it's better than yours, then maybe take what they're saying as constructive criticism, even though you didn't ask for it. If it's worse than yours, then just ignore them. It's just the comment. It's just somebody trying to get a rise out of you. So don't worry about it." And that was really helpful for me. And that's, even to this day, if I post something and somebody has something to say about it, I tend to just kind of look at like, well, let me read the comment and take all of the tone away from it, because sometimes I think we inject our own tone into something we read because we're already self-conscious about the thing we posted, and maybe it's not the best. So we're like, I don't know, is that gonna be cool? And then somebody says something, and then you're automatically throwing in kind of a tone to it. So I try to remove all tone just in case, and then I just take an honest look. What did they say, word for word? Read as the card plays, as you would do in Magic the Gathering, right? Just read it. that's how you play it. So I'd read their comment, then I'd go to their portfolio. And if I thought their work was better than mine or on par, then I would take that and I'd write that down. I'd be like, okay, I'll go look for that. Because sometimes people are just trying to be helpful, they just don't know how. Or they know how and they're just like, I'm just going to say something, which, more power to them. But if not, then I just kind of ignore it, unless I think it's a valid point. And I think the hardest thing to do is to learn to be honest with yourself, right? Self-critiquing is probably the hardest skill set I've ever had to learn. So that's probably one of my other dragons. It's like learning how to critique myself genuinely and being like, is this really good enough? Should I really put this out there, or can it be better? So my answer is sleep on it. If you make a nice, beautiful piece of art, as soon as you're done with it, don't post. I want you to go to bed. And I want you to wake up the next day and then take another look at it. Because how many times have we posted something and then 10 minutes later they're like, no, this is what? I'm dumb. Delete. This is too late. There's already 50 comments on it. Oh, I can't do, it's like sometimes we jump the gun because we want to share what we're doing with people. And we also want to connect with other like-minded individuals or other companies who are looking to hire. So we have this urge to want to post aggressively and just get everything out there so people could see what we're capable of. But sometimes I think we post a little too fast. So I tend to give myself a little bit of a break now these days and just sit on something for a day. And then if I decide to post it, usually if you see me post, it's usually been 24 hours since the render's been finished.
So I have a question, because I think that mindset is good if you are a seasoned artist, but how do you stop someone who may be at the beginning of their journey where they're falling prey to perfectionism?
Well, nothing is perfect, not even you. I'd hate to burst that bubble. I would say, at this point, just it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not be perfect. Practice makes permanent is a saying that I do not like. Practice makes permanent is more of a saying that I live by. Because if we practice something, but we do it wrong long enough, it becomes a permanent muscle memory solution. But if we do something right long enough, then that also becomes permanent. And then we tend to be doing that. When you're a beginner artist, you're still learning how to do something. And you should be more like a sponge. You should kind of see a lot of what everybody's doing. And then the things that highly interest you, take a little bit from there, take a little bit from here. Got a massive helicopter flying. Take a little bit from everybody that you see. Don't be afraid to post. It's okay to post. And even if people just don't post for likes. I think that's really where I'm going with this. Don't post for likes, because likes don't pay the bills. Post because you want to share it and you're proud of it. And if you're somebody who might be listening to this and you're somebody who critiques other people's works, you're the person that comes in the comments and says the elbow anatomy is not good, or this or that and the other, just kind of put yourself in their shoes. People who generally post their work, that's the best that they're at that moment. And I think we need to learn to kind of respect that a little bit. If you're posting something and it's not AAA level work, it's beginner level work. You just learned bicep anatomy and you did a character that now you did a Kirby with rockin' biceps, and it's that's okay, that's great. Post that stuff. Don't be ashamed to post. Just post for the right reasons and enjoy that you're on this journey, because it's a life journey. The valley of the suck, as we call it, when you first start a sculpture, the difference between a new person or an amateur versus a professional knows how to get out of the valley because they've been in it long enough. That's just experience, time under their belt, right? They've been in that race car long enough. They understand the roads that they're traveling. But when you're a new person, it could seem like forever and you're never going to get out of there. But you're going to hit plateaus. You're always going to hit a point where you're this is really good, and then it's going to dip for a little bit, and then you're going to think you suck, and then it's going to start going back up when you start seeing success or progress. And so it's always going to be an ebb and a flow. You're never going to be truly satisfied with any piece of your artwork because you always want to improve. So enjoy the journey. Don't worry too much about what other people are saying. Don't post for likes. Just post because it's something that is exciting to you. And if you're trying to get a job, then make sure you have that your portfolio is always improving over time. Your first post, that can be your worst post, right? If you go to ArtStation down at the bottom, that first post that everybody has, that doesn't have to be like the best of the best. It just has to showcase what you're trying to get. But as you post over time, it's going to need to show progression and skill. And that takes time. Nobody does this overnight. So just don't be afraid to show that journey. Show more of you're showing yourself. You're selling yourself. Be genuine. Be authentic.
So I'm curious if you were to build like a sort of exercise program for someone, but it's actually for art, whether it's ZBrush or 3D or photography, because you've done many things. Like how would you encourage someone to start trying something that's outside of their comfort zone and play and experience the suck and then start building a portfolio? Because you
Yeah.
experienced that with Shane.
I did,
Where you asked someone like the mentor to like help roast you effectively, and then it grew your portfolio into this epic thing that it is now.
Yeah.
How would you program that for someone?
Well, first I would find their interest level. So when I first started, I did a lot of fan art. I was told not to do that by so many people. But at the end of the day, it was going to help keep my interest. I never sold my work as like original piece. I didn't make a Vegeta and then say like, this is mine, you should buy it. And my fan art has always just been like, boom, here's my version of it. I posted a lot of fan art because it kept my interest so high. So as a beginner, the very first rep or the very first set of things we're going to be doing is, what are you interested in? Let's get that on paper. And what do you want to make out of these things that are interested? So let's just take character design. So for me, it was Dragon Ball. I always loved Dragon Ball and grew up on that show. I think it's been amazing. So the first things I got serious about, I sculpted a Goku, I sculpted a Vegeta, I sculpted a Jiren, I sculpted a Gohan. And they were horrible, by the way, like the worst things ever. But it excited me and it wanted me to go back and do it again. So first start out with something that you love. Because if you love it, you're going to want to return and do it again. And you're also going to want to improve it because you'll recognize where you're falling short a little quicker, I think, than others. At least that's what it was for me. I was able to be like, that doesn't quite look like Vegeta. I know it needs to look a certain way, and it helped push me on the second and third attempt. Gravity Falls. I sculpted a lot of Gravity Falls. Bob's Burgers. Love those. So I sculpted them too. Like, I actually sculpted Louise Belcher like 3 times because I was like, I love this character. She's super awesome. She's like my spirit animal. But at the end of the day, I was like, it's not quite right. I need to get this better. So if you love the subject matter, you're going to want to come back to it, and you're going to want to do it again, and you're going to want to naturally get better. And I think that's something that is highly encouraging. So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, then you kind of are, then the second step would be, well, finding what direction you want to go into. For me, I settled on toys. I still learned game pipeline, I still learned animation pipeline, but I was like, toys, I see a lot of job opportunities there, so I'm going to try to go do that. And so I figured out what direction I wanted to go into, which then led me into, okay, now everything I make is for 3D printing, because then I'm going to show that I can sculpt it and I can manufacture it. There's my portfolio. Mm-hmm. Please hire me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's the direction. So starting out with what you love, focus and practice on that, then work your way into what direction you want to go into. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of need to be guided into that, because there's so much. Mm-hmm. There's no way any new artist, especially today, is going to go on the internet and in 10 minutes be like, I know what I'm going to do. Like, if they weren't told ahead of time, go be a character artist, they may not know the direction. And even then, they're not going to know, what's the pipeline? I get this question all the time. What's the pipeline for character artists? What's the pipeline for this? Pipeline for that? It's not like relevant information you just find unless you deep dive and you know what you're asking for. So things are a little confusing naturally. So breaking it down to something that's as simple as, I love this, I'm going to sculpt this for a while. That's going to help me get better. Then eventually you start looking on how to build your portfolio. Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, now that you've really covered a lot with like the beginning of your journey, the beginning of starting a journey that embraces being curious and being interested and transitioning that into being very direct, very intentional with the direction you want to go. I'm curious where you're at now, and like what phase is are you in? Because you mentioned earlier that being an artist is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
So what phase do you think you're in now?
So right now I'm in the exploratory phase. Like my job gives me a unique perspective, or rather puts me in a unique position to see a lot of industries. So when I joined Maxon, I was just a toy sculptor. Since then, I've taught shoe companies, I've taught automotive companies, I've taught animation companies, I've taught games, I've taught architecture, I've jewelry, I've taught all these different industries how to use ZBrush. Medical illustration, did a deep dive in there. So I'm kind of in the dabble phase right now because my job affords me to be a little bit more flexible, a more jack of all trades at the moment. And so I get to kind of see and experience new things. So I'm constantly just learning new software or new pipelines or trying to understand what a certain company is trying to get. And then I have to troubleshoot it and then give it back to them. So, and I have to show them where ZBrush fits into the pipeline. So I kind of need to stay on top of all of these different industries, pipelines, and expectations. And so that's part of my job now, is to always stay on top of it. So like right now I'm doing a deep dive in Unreal Engine because we do a lot of conversations and trainings with game studios, and they're always, games and film are always pushing the bar as to what is going to be the next big thing, right? Film is always breaking the budget with millions of dollars trying to make a T-Rex look extremely amazing. If you go back to the first Jurassic Park and then go to the latest one, there's a huge difference in quality. Look at Godzilla. Like, that thing is so many pieces. I think like that sculpture, I think the arm was one entire like massive model inside a ZBrush, and then a leg, and then the tail, then the body, then the head. It was like 5 giant pieces to get the level of detail, and then to understand how to stitch all that together. Like, so they're pushing the bar, and then game studios usually follow behind because it's like, well, if films did it, how cinematic can we make? I mean, the PlayStation 5, what's the PlayStation 6 going to look like? That's going to push things even further, right? The Switch 2 is just now like getting extremely high level detail to the point where they're wanting to push their geometry further. So it's like I get to see the evolution kind of from behind the scenes, and also kind of help pave the way when they have questions. So I get to kind of be a little bit more of the explorer type artist right now, where I get to kind of dabble in a little bit of everything, but that also keeps my mind fresh. So it's helpful to kind of explain, like, why would ZBrush for iPad be beneficial for my studio, and I have to come in and kind of showcase it. So it's a lot of prepping, and I have to kind of think outside the box. But again, this affords me the opportunity to see all these different industries and how ZBrush can help in those industries. And then also too, when they come back with feature requests or ideas, or they come back with problems that ZBrush can't solve, we then try to figure out how we can make it possible for them to achieve their goals. And that helps us kind of also grow the program, which is why ZBrush has been one of the best, or the best, sculpting application like in the world, because they're always trying to like help evolve with the times and the technology.
So there's a lot of growth mindsets that you have, it seems, where it's like, okay, I've gone through the beginning phase where you're really just dabbling with just like learning the software, and then you went to the whole portfolio thing, and now it seems like you're very interested in the entire industry as a whole, for like what art is capable of.
Yeah.
So my last question to you is, how do you encourage people to stay interested as artists, even when it might get a little boring or it might suck a little bit?
This might sound like a little bit of a left field answer, but bear with me here. Go live your life. Go outside of your house, apartment, studio. Go experience life a little bit. I find that there are times, and you and I have had some pretty deep conversations as we've built our friendship, and there are times when like things just seem overwhelming, and then I've been burnt out. I experienced burnout very recently, actually, as an artist. And what's helped me get out of that mindset was just focusing on my own happiness, my internal happiness, and where I want to be 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And so I've been focusing a lot of more inwards, and that's been been reflecting in my artwork. It's made me more passionate to want to go back and make a new project or do sculpt or do something different. So live your life. That's like the biggest thing I can say is like, don't be afraid to go outside. I know like it requires a lot of hours, the 10,000 hours to be good at any one thing or be a master at one thing. But you can't cram in those 10,000 hours overnight. And you shouldn't try. Sleep is important, even if you can run off of 4 hours of sleep. Trust me, I know. But I think the more we experience in life, it helps shape and keeps inspiration a little bit higher. So that's like my big takeaway from that is just really invest inward so then you have something to output. If you tap the well and there's nothing, it's all dried up, then you're going to kind of feel burnt out, tired, and just not wanting to continue that. And that can be difficult. So, reset your values, go on a vacation, go hang out with some friends you haven't seen in a while, reconnect with people, go out and have a few drinks, have some fun, come back home, get some good sleep. You'd be surprised what that can do.
That was such a beautiful answer. No one has given me that answer so far. So thank you. That was awesome. I do believe that. I think when you are an artist that goes out and explores the world and you get reference.
Yeah, you do.
So.
I have taken reference photos of rocks and trees and random things because I'm out hiking and I'm like, this would be cool. There you go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I do love to end all of my episodes with a dice roll. And we're going to see how your next personal project is going to go. So let me get a D20 really quick.
All right.
And this is a little bit of an exercise to see how freelancers sometimes things go great, sometimes they go not so great, and we have to roll with the punches. So here is the D20.
Ooh, we got this nice, beautiful color.
Yeah.
Love
so
it.
let's roll that on your desk.
All right, here we go. Also, I told you I haven't played D&D much at all. So it's a 3.
Okay.
That's pretty low, I think.
That is a little low. So
do I get a mulligan?
Unfortunately, we do not get advantage on this. So how are you as an artist going to deal with a 3?
Honestly, I'm just gonna take it on the cheek on this one. I think it's just a number. It's fine. I think I'm still in control of the things I want to do. And like I said, burnouts happened, but I'm recovering on that. So I think we'll just roll with the punches and see what happens.
Amazing.
I won't let this number bother me. I promise I won't lose any sleep.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me in the tavern today. And until next time, may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Hell yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You can wave to the camera. Thank you so much for taking the time today to listen to the Creative Adventure Podcast. I hope the time was worth it because you're not getting it back. But if you enjoyed this episode, leaving some sort of comment or review does very much help out this podcast. It helps me get more feedback on how I can create stuff that is valuable to you, and it also helps get this shared across more platforms to more people, so hopefully we can help more artists try the freelancing thing, or if you're not into freelancing, at least get comfortable doing things that are a little uncomfortable as artists. That being said, again, thank you, and until next time, may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor. Take care.